Yeah, I wanted to ask you about your company that you do. You have a partner. It's PQ Talent.
Yep.
Yeah, and I've no way to understand. I don't understand what you guys do, so I'm super interested in hearing about it.
So we're essentially headhunters. You can call us recruiters. We're the liaison between industrial manufacturing and distribution, integration, and OEM companies, and to candidates. So we partner with these companies that need help finding people that they can't find on their own, because 9 times out of 10, if you post a job posting, the people that you want aren't applying. They're already working. They're happy in a job, and those are the best candidates, the passive ones. So we actually go out and I say snipe candidates, because I like the sniper approach. Like, you find that one person who's really good and you try to get them to talk to you. So it's a lot of cold calling and trying to convince somebody that you have something better for them.
Sure, or at least even consider.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, have you ever, does your conversation sound like, hey, have you ever thought about, making yourself available in the market to make more money?
Yep. That's usually my approach to people. It's very passive.
That seems fair. Like, hey, if you're good at your job, there might be somebody out there willing to pay you more for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and 90% of the people, like I said, we work with, they're passive candidates. They're already working, and we're just trying to offer them something better, possibly better, because we don't know what they have going on yet until we talk to them.
Sure, you're just facilitating the negotiation, really.
Yep, I'm a conversation facilitator.
Yeah.
I have a rec from a company that has specific skill sets they want, and I go out and try to find those skill sets in people and try to bring those two together.
Yeah, and it behooves you that they're good at their job, right? Like, overall, the longevity of your reputation in your company. How do you discover if somebody's going to be a good candidate?
By having conversations. After you do it for a while, within a minute or two of having a conversation, you can kind of determine if they're a good candidate or not, just by their ability to have a functional conversation.
Oh, yeah?
Can they do what they say is on their resume? And then you just you start asking probing questions. It's usually open-ended.
So you get their resume to review too, right?
Yes. Yep.
Like, so you can sort of evaluate them based on what's on there.
Yep.
And then when you talk to them, you could find out whether or not this is a for real resume.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things that you can. So it's a double-edged sword, because there's a lot that a resume can tell you, but there's also a lot that it can't tell you. It can't tell you the type of personality the person has,
right,
or the type of culture that they're used to, or what their views and values are. But from a skill set standpoint, the resume is going to give you that information. Do they have good job history? If they're in sales, do they show their growth in sales in their territory? Like, did they design equipment? Did they design components? Did they do both? Like, you can kind of start to paint this picture of what this person's done in their career. Like, you can figure out their age. You can, go down and see when he graduated, or her, and you can kind of tell, this person's 32. They had 3 jobs in 10 years. They've shown progressive growth. Like, those are all good check boxes.
I see, yeah.
So when we go hunt for candidates, usually we have like a T-bar list of just yes and no. And you have those check boxes from the company. And, okay, do they have this? Yep, nope, yep. And you can kind of quickly determine if this person's going to have luck getting an interview with the company. Because we have no say over who gets hired. We're literally just a conversation facilitator. We're just connecting dots.
That's super important. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many places out there to work, and they're getting so many applications and resumes from people who are available that aren't the right fit. They're never going to make it through that mountain of shit to find yours.
Nope. And the good
Even
thing,
if you figure out the right people to apply to, the chance of them finding you in their pile of resumes is really small.
hmm yeah, like I was saying, like not if you we don't do job postings. Job postings are expensive. Like Indeed, I think it's like $200-$400 to make a job posting for like 30 days. 90% of the resumes you're going to get are garbage. It's if you need a hydraulic systems engineer, you're going to get fork truck drivers applying. Like
People who need a job.
people that need a job.
Yeah, I get that. If I own businesses, that's mostly what I get. And
And
the number one reason people say that they would be a good candidate to work for me is because they need a job.
and that's a terrible answer.
It's the worst answer I could think of. Yeah. So I get it, man. It's such a good thing that you do, and it doesn't sound that difficult. It sounds really fun, actually, to me.
It's a lot of fun.
It's like fishing and hunting and sniping. Like,
Yep.
I got to go out here and start cold calling. I got to do a little back research. You use like a lot of LinkedIn searching and other ways. There's probably a lot of cool resources, and it sounds like a lot of fun. And then you bag somebody you make a connection that goes through. Everybody wins,
Yep.
and you get a big check. Like the recruiting fees are pretty good.
hmm
So, but not everybody wants to be a recruiter, and not everybody can cut it. Because there's a brutal aspect to it.
There's a very brutal aspect. It's when I first started, I worked 8 years in a factory. I had no communication skills. I had no sales skills. Not really any business acumen. I just always knew I wanted more. And a little bit about my backstory is, my Trans Am I built.
Yeah, it was a dope. It was a tough car.
Yeah. And that I started that build back when internet forums were popular, like before Facebook groups became available and destroyed forums.
Oh, yeah, right.
So my build got a lot of attention on there. And I started getting people adding me on Facebook to follow my build because it took me 1.5 years to build that car. So over 1.5 years, I gathered 2,000 or 3,000 people that followed, which is
They were building it with you, man.
Yeah, they're building cars too. They want to see what's going on.
That's awesome.
And that's how I got hooked up with a buddy of mine who knew my partner now. He was friends with him. I met him like once, and I knew he made pretty good money. I knew he worked for himself, but that's about all I knew about him. And then in 2015, Caterpillar, their business is very heavily reliant on the oil industry, and it's always up and down. So I've already got laid off once. We had slowdowns, and then I just got tired of it, like never having that security, quote unquote security.
Sure.
And in 2015, they offered me a severance package to leave, and I took it with no direction. Like they paid me $11,000. I think I had $3,000 in my bank account.
That's risky.
So I left with like $14,000 in my bank, and I contacted this guy, and he was going to help me find a job. And like I said, I knew he made good money, worked for himself. So I just asked him. I was like, "Hey, I know you get people jobs. I don't know what that means. I know you make good money. Is this something I could do too?" And
It's a damn good question.
yeah. And he's like, "Well, I've never." Yeah, at the time he'd only been doing it for 6 months. He just left a job making $120,000 a year. He's got 5 kids and married, and he took the plunge.
Yeah. So
And
the reward is there.
The reward was there. So
That's cool.
So he had me meet him at Buffalo Wild Wings in Lafayette on one day, and I showed up, and he kind of showed me what he does, and here we are 8 years later.
Yeah, and you're killing the game.
We work with in my opinion, some of the best manufacturers and distributors out there in our niche.
That's awesome.
Because our niche, I learned very quickly that the hydraulics and industrial automation industry is actually kind of a small industry. There's a lot of people that know each other. So, when I first started, I was mainly focused on business development. So I was doing a lot, like so much cold calling to companies, calling HR, calling engineering managers, calling VPs, calling presidents.
Planting seeds and getting your foot in the doors.
Planting seeds, getting your foot in the door, trying to develop those agreements so you can work with them. And I got so good at it that we actually, at one time we had over 100 different job positions open between like 20 different companies. Whew. And it was just me and him. So we couldn't keep up. We had to kind of dial back what we were focused on and really find those core customers that were good customers that paid quickly, that made decisions quickly.
Yeah.
And kind of scale back a little bit, because you can outgrow what you can handle really quickly in this.
Huh. Well, that's a good problem.
Yeah.
But now you guys are looking to possibly get more recruiters on board.
Yep.
Under your guidance, which could really make it way more palatable. You don't, if people aren't going out on their own, they have you guys as mentors and to help them with that process. I could see that being really attractive to people.
It is. And
so how would somebody that wants to be to do what you do or work with you guys at PQ Talent, what would be the way they do that? What should they start doing, or contact somebody? Or
yeah, I mean, if they wanted to come work with us and learn the ropes, it's just a matter of contacting me, and we have a conversation and see kind of where your situation is, because I'll be honest, we've went through a lot of people in 8 years who have seen the shiny object, because you do make good money in recruiting. The fees are, we charge 25% of the first year base salary. So I'll let you do the math.
And these are pretty good paying jobs.
Yeah, our average salary is between $75,000 and $150,000 a year.
Oh, that's a good commission.
So if you say your average person's $100,000, we make $25,000 a person.
That's really good.
And we have very low. We have probably 90% profit margins. We don't have a lot of overhead.
So you're saying people are attracted to that, but not necessarily want to do.
But we have long sales cycles. Like, someone who wants to do this, they have to be able to put full-time hours in it in the beginning, or you're going to fail. You got to it's like pushing a rock up a hill.
It takes a while to get the rewards,
right.
Which is probably tricky for people. I just saw some report that some crazy high percentage of our population is still living check to check. Mm-hmm. They can't come up with $1,000 if they need it.
So in this situation, they would need, you would have to be able to go 3 or 4 months without getting paid. But when you get paid, it's probably going to be a big check.
Yeah.
And then that leads into, you got to have some financial intelligence. Like, can you say you only got paid 4 times a year, but each time you got paid was $25,000? You have to learn how to budget your money.
Yeah, that's hard for many people. Mm-hmm. That's like that's like when people get their tax checks.
Right. They want to go blow it, and then I've been very guilty of this too in the beginning.
Me too.
I make a bunch of money, and then you cruise.
It's hard not to spend it.
Right.
You got it.
Yeah, and ours is like a lot of people, like I was saying, we have long sales cycles, but there's a sales pipeline.
Yeah.
You got to keep your job orders open. You got to keep candidates going. You got to keep that flowing at all times. So if you get paid a big check and you take 6 or 8 weeks and you don't really do much, that pipeline's going to dry up.
Yeah.
And then you're basically starting over again.
So the work you're doing today is paying you in 3 to 6 months.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a long time frame for most people's reward systems. Mm-hmm. Most people think of rewards daily.
Yep.
Weekly at best. So I could see why that would be you'd almost have to learn a different philosophy of how to look at the time of life.
Yeah.
To do that well. I have a recommendation for that. How I would do it if I said I'm quitting everything I do, I'm going to come recruit for you. Mm-hmm. I would start my own LLC.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be doing it as an individual, and I would find a way to invest some money in there to start with, like $20,000. And then I'd pay myself $500 a week out of it. And that's all I would pay myself. And whatever money commissions I made, I would put in there. And if I, got good at it, I could increase my salary to $700 a week, $1,000 a week, or whatever.
Right.
But I would stay ahead of my balance of earnings. Mm-hmm. That's how I would approach it, probably, because it would.
This is a smart way to do it. Yeah.
It would be a difficult thing to When somebody's like, hey, are you going to buy a house in 6 months? You're like, well, maybe. It depends on if this guy gets the job, you know? Like that seems like a weird way to think of life.
And it's, I've had this happen so many times. Like, you can't count on the money until that money's in your bank account, because shit can happen.
Oh yeah.
I've had 4 or 5 candidates that were on final interviews. I'm like, hell yeah, they're all getting offers. I'm going to make 80 grand. And then boom, something happens with all of them. They all fall out. And you're like, fuck, all that work. Yeah. It took me 2 months to get this rock rolling. And then now it just plunged into the ocean.
Like, yeah, that's discouraging.
So that discourages a lot of people. Like, they don't understand.
I see that as an awesome thing. It's like you get to live your whole life trying to accomplish difficult victories. I bet every win is fucking amazing for you.
I do a happy dance every time I win one.
But compare that to people with a regular job, man. Nobody does a super happy dance when they get their paycheck. They're like, oh, finally, it's here.
Yeah. And that's like you were saying, like, most people can really only see like a week or two ahead. That's as far as their headlights shine. They do work, they want to get paid for it. They do work, they want to get paid for it. And recruiting takes such an eclectic skill set. Like,
well, you're trading your skills for money instead of your time.
Exactly.
It's a whole different ball game. That's hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
We are like post-industrialization, where people grew up learning trade your time for money.
And that works for a lot of people. There's nothing wrong with that. Like,
no, unless you're taking a job where it doesn't apply.
Right.
If you become a recruiter and you keep that idea, you're screwed. If you believe you're owed for the 80 hours of cold calling you did, you're wrong. You're not owed.
And we've tried both ways. Like, we're strictly full commission. We've tried paying people. We've tried paying salaries in the past, but people get comfortable. They don't.
Right. They're going to get paid.
They're going to get paid regardless of what they do.
Not hungry enough.
Nope. And, we paid not a lot of money. I mean, like, it's a draw. It's like, it's not, we're going to pay you an $80,000 a year salary. It's, what do you need to survive for 3 months? What's going to keep your lights on and keep you kind of comfortable? $3,000 a month.
And that's extremely gracious of you guys. That was like very hopeful and giving, because really, if you were going to pay somebody a salary to be a recruiter that gets commission, you would probably be recruiting a recruiter that was already really good at it normally.
And those people are expensive.
Yeah.
So there's a big risk there. Do I go out and recruit a recruiter who wants to do this independently and pay them? Because
there's no incentive for him.
Right.
Or her.
They've been doing it so long for a company, because usually these recruiters work for a company. They're not doing it like we do. And the other caveat is, okay, say I recruit a recruiter and he comes on board for 80 grand a year and he's performing. What's going to keep him around, and for him not to just go, well, fuck you guys, I'm going to go do this on my own since you show me the ropes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, if he's valuable to your company, extremely valuable to your company, it's going to be painfully obvious to him that he would be more valuable to himself.
Mm-hmm. And maybe they would do it, maybe they fail, maybe they don't. We don't know.
Yeah.
But you got to have some kind of business acumen, because you're running your own. Like, if we bring a recruiter in, you're kind of running your own business. You're running your own desk.
Yeah.
You're cold calling companies. You're getting contracts. You're talking to candidates. You're making those connections. You're talking to HR.
But you point them on where to go.
Right.
Okay. Because for me, like, I've thought about doing this tomorrow, for example. I'd be like, I don't even know which direction to point in. Mm-hmm. So I could see why it'd be super attractive to come work with you guys.
And that's why I stuck around, like, with my partner, Nate. Like, I could have branched off 3 or 4 years ago and went and did this on my own and kept 100% of what I do. Like, we have a pretty good split right now. Like, it's very fair. Like, I'm okay with it. And
it's great to have partners, I think.
Right. It's more valuable for me to work with him than it is to go off on my own in the long term.
There's different kinds of values with having partners and colleagues and coworkers to cooperate with, especially in that condition. I keep partners, and all my businesses, I've gotten to a point where I could have, one way or another, made a move and owned all of the company. But that's not It's way cooler to have a partner.
Mm-hmm.
My relationships with my partners are all awesome. Like, we're super honest and direct with each other, and
Yep.
we stop each other from doing stupid shit all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be like, hey, what do you think of this? And they'll tell me the truth. Like, no, that is stupid.
And that's invaluable.
And I'm like, oh, thank God you told me. If you weren't here to tell me, I would have just done it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
So it's doing something like recruiting, man. Like, I know you could sit at home and do it by yourself and can crush it. But, man, sitting next to someone else on the same team doing it, just to be like, hey, what do you think about this? Should I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Should I talk to these people? Am I wasting my time with this?
Yep.
Just be having somebody.
And it creates friendly competition too. It's like, I'm going to kick your ass this year.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm going to kick yours. And then you both benefit from it at the end, because if he makes money, I make money. If I make money, he makes money.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
we have the same goals. And that's another thing that people that want to come and do this, like, we got to have the common same goal. We're all here to hold each other up and hold each other accountable for what we're doing. So, put the work in and the money will come. But if you start slacking off, like, just like any job, especially in something that's full commission, it's like, you don't perform, you don't get paid. Like, that's hard. That's hard for a lot of people to handle and make that transition.
Yeah, it's true. But, man, you couldn't have a more meaningful and interesting way to make money, though, I don't think.
I got very lucky. Like, I never thought I'd fall into something like this, because, like you were saying earlier, at the end of the day, everybody wins. I win because I get a big fat check. Company wins because they found somebody that's actually going to help them grow their business and move on. And then I just help somebody move up in their career. 90% of the people we recruit, it's an up move for them, not a lateral move or a down move.
Yeah.
It's increasing their career path, whether that's more money or more advancement opportunities, or maybe it's more time off, maybe it's, whatever it is. It's a win-win for everybody.
That's beautiful. I was thinking about that, and the only thing I could think of that wasn't a win on the surface, and I got to ask you about this, is what about the company that you took somebody from? Now, the reason I ask is because they're probably a company that is a company you could also recruit for them.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just be starting bad relationships either by stealing somebody's best employee or helping that happen. Obviously, you're not doing it, but you're facilitating it.
Right.
So I'm thinking, on one hand, like, do you drop them a lead? Like, hey, I took your best person, but I could find you one.
There's a moral and ethical line to run in this. So if I have a contract with a company, I do not recruit their people. Their people are hands off.
That's fair.
Because I work with many different distributors, and some of those distributors are competitors. So if I had company A and company B that both had openings, I'm not going to go recruit A to B and then B to A.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah,
for them. Yeah, nobody's gonna deal with you.
And like I was saying earlier, it's a small industry. Word gets around.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful. You don't want to burn bridges in this industry, especially as a recruiter.
Yeah.
So, we do find, I have done that before. Like, recruited somebody from a company, I have no idea who the company is, and then go to that company and try to pitch them recruiting services.
Yeah, well, they've seen how good you are at it after that, right?
Yeah. Like, I kind of took your guy, but if you need help filling that role.
Yeah, and that's fair. All's fair in business and war, man. Because you're not doing anything unethical. You're connecting people with an opportunity that exists in real life for them.
And at the end of the day, it's the candidate's choice. Like, if they're interested.
Yeah, you didn't make them interested.
There's a reason they're interested.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing to make your employees want to leave?
Yeah. Sure. That's interesting part. Have you ever had how do companies usually respond to that, or do they even know that their employee was recruited?
What do you mean?
Like the person that you do get a new job, the company they used to work for, do they know that person got recruited, or do they respond in
Not
any kind
usually.
of way? It's just private.
Yeah, usually it's just, they'll go to their employer and, I haven't put my 2 weeks in. Or like, oh, really? Where are you going? Like, well, I'm I got a better opportunity. Sometimes they will. I've had it happen where you get a candidate gets an offer, and then their present company will make them a counter offer to get them to stay.
Yeah, sure.
I've run into that before.
You've helped them either way. You just didn't get paid.
Right. Yep. So either way, it's that person's probably going to make more money in the end somehow.
I think what you're doing in the big scale of things is just good, because ideally the most competent people in an area will get the best reward in a free market like ours.
Yep.
So you're sort of facilitating the natural movement of what should be happening to make industry better, to make community better, to make things happen and work better. I think that's fantastic.
A lot of recruiters get a bad name.
Yeah, I could see how you could be viewed as the enemy by companies. Like, the same way journalists are viewed by like famous people like the enemy, because you never know which one is an asshole. Like, are they pretending like they're going to write me a good article, or are they going to smear me? It's probably similar to you. Like,
I mean, there's a lot of recruiters out there. Fortunately for us, between my partner and I, we worked in the industry. Like, we put our hands on it, we felt it, we've touched it, we understand how it works.
Yeah.
A lot of recruiters come out of college with like a business degree or whatever, and they go recruit for a company for these positions that they've never had their hands on before. They've never seen it. They take a job description and they pull out keywords and then try to go find somebody that matches and throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
Well, so our companies that we work with, they're smaller, probably between $100 million and $400 million a year in revenue. So they're relatively smaller companies versus like Fortune 100 companies, right?
Yeah.
So they want to get someone hired as quickly as possible, but if you're working with a recruiter who doesn't really understand your business and you just keep throwing candidates at them that don't fit, you're just wasting time. And they see that.
Yeah.
Like, they can tell that you don't know exactly what they need. So understanding the role is a big part of it. And that's another thing that makes it hard for someone to come on, is to learn the industry, learn those key terms, like learn how does distribution work with manufacturers, how do integrators fit into the picture, where does an applications engineer fit in all this picture, or an engineer or a salesperson.
Well, that's an interesting point that raises a question. What industries can you recruit for?
Any
industry.
Any industry.
So if there's somebody listening to this right now, they're thinking, well, I don't know anything about this shit he's talking about, so it doesn't apply to me. But it probably does. Then whatever industry that they do know.
And we'd be open to that. Like, if someone came in and was like, hey, I know IT shit. I don't know anything about networking or IT or cybersecurity or whatever.
Yeah,
but
that seems like a good one.
There's a need there.
Yeah.
You could absolutely, the process is still the same. I could still teach you how to be a good salesperson. I could still teach you how to go find those people. Even though I don't know anything about the industry, I know the process.
Yeah.
To get there.
That's an exciting proposition.
And what's cool, like our industry is relatively lower paid than other industries. Like, IT people, $200,000, $250,000 is pretty normal salaries.
That's a big commission.
So imagine 25% on $200,000.
Do the commissions stay the same throughout industries, you think?
They vary. So anywhere between 20 and 35%.
Jeez, that's so much.
Yeah.
That's so good. You're making me want to recruit now.
Like, somebody could accidentally place 2 to 4 people a year, accidentally, just by putting in the work.
Yeah.
Like, consistent, like, if you could put in a few hours a day, just building those relationships, like, you could place a few people a year just by accident, just because it's a little bit of a numbers game. Like, if I contact 100 people, hopefully 20 of them respond, 10 of them are decent, 4 of them get submitted, 2 win. Like, there is like, after you do it a while, you can kind of gauge those percentages and like your probabilities of landing somebody.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty wild. And now with modern technology and like indexing in different categories and social media stuff, it's probably getting a little easier to find people, or is it getting harder?
So Yes, so it's kind of both. Like, it's not hard to go find people. The hard part is getting people to talk to you.
I see. Yeah, but
Learning how to jump in someone's DMs and be like, "Hey, want to change jobs?"
Right,
Like, you have to be kind of strategic,
Scam.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly, because they're really good candidates. They're probably getting hit up a lot by recruiters, so you have to stand out.
Okay.
So I've always had good success with being passive and honest with people, like very direct and to the point.
That's a good idea. Also, do you deal in like referrals at all?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
Referrals are the best because good people don't refer shitty people. So when you get a referral, they're 9 times out of 10 a good candidate because their name's attached to it.
And then they're probably more likely to talk to you because you can say, "Hey,
Right.
so and so referred you to
You got
me."
someone vouching for you.
Do you ever drop referrals? Like, "Hey, check out these 2 people that I placed in an industry that are similar to you." Is that something that's even possible? Or do you have to just keep all their stuff private?
As far as like referring them to another recruiter, or
No, like when you're cold calling somebody in their DMs, like, do you ever drop a name and be like, "Hey," or you just in general say, "Hey, I've done this a lot successfully"?
it depends. Like, it depends on the job. It depends on their history. Like, I'm always trying to find dots to connect to make me authentic.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know how it is you express to somebody with evidence that you've done this well before.
So, first of all, you got your profile. LinkedIn's kind of like, it looks like a resume. So when you message somebody, most of the time they're going to go look at your profile and they go, "Okay, he's a partner, so he's high up in the company, and he's been doing this for 8 years. So he must be legit," right?
Yeah,
So,
even though you don't have a scorecard.
right. And then it's just a matter of how you lay out your message. Mine's very simple. It's, "Hey, Jeremy, ran across you on a strategic search. Simply curious if you ever keep your options open. I'm looking for this in this area. This is about what it pays. If you're not interested, no big deal. Maybe you know somebody who does." And that's usually my go-to message. And it works really well.
It's no bullshit.
All right.
That's great.
And I get good responses out of it. You're always going to get no's.
Sure.
I get people.
That's an answer.
Mm-hmm.
That means you wrote a good question.
Mm-hmm. I'd say my response rate's 10 to 30%, which is excellent.
Yeah.
So, I've spent years honing my approach to people, whether it's a cold call or a cold email or a cold message. It took a lot of stumbling because in the beginning it was like fucking paragraphs. No one wants to read that shit.
Yeah.
Like, or you call someone on the phone, you're like, "Oh, my name's Josh. I have a recruiting company. I've done this. I've done," like, using the eyes and talking about yourself doesn't work. They don't give a shit. Yeah. They don't know who you are. Like, you got to cater to what their needs are. What's going, how are they going to...
You have to compel them to be interested to start with. That's what a cold call is all about. Mm-hmm. That's so hard.
Yep. But, like, when I cold call a company, I take the assumptive approach and assume they work with recruiters. I don't ask them, "Do you work with recruiters?" Because they can answer that with a yes or a no. So if I go, "Hey, Dustin, this is Josh Francis with PQ Talent. Do you guys use recruiters?" "No." Well, where do you go from there?
Yeah, right.
Like, you got to keep probing. So mine's like, "How often do you work with recruiters?" Then they got to say something.
And then if the answer is, "Well, I don't, I never have," then maybe they'll stop and think about it and be like, "Why don't I? Maybe I should be." He's assuming I do, so maybe everybody else is, right? Is that the psychology there?
Yeah, and they'll give you the answer. It's like, "Well, we don't really use them," or, "We do have a couple recruiters that we do work with." "Oh, really? How much luck have you had with them?" "Is this role still... I've seen this role open. It's been open for 30 days. What are your struggles with this right now?"
Yeah. Like, what's your problem I can solve?
Mm-hmm. You gotta ask those open-ended questions to keep... The more they talk, the better.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and you've gotten really good at this. You've got a reputation around it outside of your reputation inside your industry. So do people come to you now? Do companies or candidates just come to you and be like, "Hey"?
Oh, yeah. Yep, we've worked.
That probably makes the whole thing a lot easier.
Yes, when my partner, so when my partner was working for Parker, he got to live all over the United States.
Oh,
Sorry,
that's cool.
I'm going to put my phone on silent here. They would move him, like he's lived in like the Pacific Northwest. He's lived in the South. He's lived in the Midwest. And as a sales guy, he got to walk into all these different types of facilities, manufacturers, distributors, integrators, OEMs, and selling them product. So he got to connect with like a lot of presidents and like people, decision makers, and he's kept those contacts, and that's helped us greatly in building our business.
That's great.
So now, like, I try to be very consistent on LinkedIn with my posts, and I do have candidates reach out to me because they watch my stuff. And they're like, hey, I noticed you had this sales role. You know, I'm looking for this. Do you have anything? And whether I do or not, it doesn't matter. I have a connection for the future.
Yeah.
And you can do what I call reverse
Yeah.
recruiting.
Give me a minute. I might.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You can take someone's resume. So here's a trick that you can do is, say you got somebody in North Carolina. You don't have any companies to work, but it's a really good resume. You go do some searching on Google or LinkedIn, and you find job openings or companies that this person would fit well in. And you call those companies up and be like, hey, I don't know if you're looking or not, but I have a really good candidate who'd probably be interested in coming to work for you. This is his background. He aligns very well with you. Would you be interested in talking to him? And I've had luck doing that before in the past, because some companies, if the candidate is really good, they'll create a position, even though it's not open,
Yeah.
even though there's no positions.
Oh, I can
open.
understand that from my perspective as being a business owner. Man, shit, if somebody called me up and be like, hey, found the perfect employee for you to do jobs that we see that you do you want to check them out? I'd be like, well, yes.
Yeah.
I do.
So imagine, as a business owner, imagine needing somebody with a very specific skill set, and in your email comes this candidate. It's just like checkbox. You're like, yes, like this is what I need. Like, that gets them excited.
That's when the recruiter's doing it right.
Right.
Yeah, that would make me compelled to talk to you for sure. Mm-hmm. You come to me with the goods first. Like, oh, this guy's already got a good, decent candidate. Mm-hmm. I'm listening.
And the whole country is at your fingertips. Like, the digital age has made it where you can work all over the country doing this.
That's what I was trying to get at earlier. Is that made it better, worse, easier, more difficult?
It's given us a lot more opportunity. Because, like, say you're working...
There's a lot more to dig through, though.
Right. But say you're working on the West Coast, they're 3 hours behind us. 4 o'clock rolls around, most people in the Midwest are closing it up. If you want to keep hustling, go recruit in California. It's only 1 o'clock there. Keep going.
That's a good point.
So it's beautiful for like business development. You can use the time zones to your advantage.
If you're really badass, you end your day with Alaska and Hawaii.
Right. I've never recruited in Alaska or Hawaii.
Never made it that long in the day.
I almost worked in Australia once.
Yeah.
With a company out there.
Just wake up in the middle of the night and make cold calls.
Yeah. That's what I would have to do.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I really, really enjoy it. I mean, not because of the money. The money's good. Like, I love making that kind of money. But it's at the end of the day, you're helping people. Like last year, I had...
Yeah, it must be awesome when you get somebody their dream job, dude. Mm-hmm. They must be, like, super grateful.
When they're excited, like, I get excited. Like, last year, I had 2 sales guys. They both got laid off from their jobs. And I got them sales roles with good companies right at Christmas.
Oh, nice.
So that was really cool.
Hell yeah. Do you ever, like, follow up with people down the road? Mm-hmm. Like, and they're like, yeah, I'm still working here. It's the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Yep. I try to keep in touch with them. We have a 90-day guarantee. So there is a refund policy that we have. So... we've only had to exercise this like 2 or 3 times in our whole career, where, like, say you get someone hired and they quit in like 30 days, we have a staggered refund policy, like 75% refund, 0 to 30 days, 31 to 60 is 50%, and then the last quarter is 25%, or a free replacement. So I always try to encourage the candidates to stay at least 90 days so I don't have to give any money back.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and if you're going to make a move in your career, man, you got to give it 3 months at least.
Easy.
To try.
Yeah.
To just, I mean, there's very few things about a company you could find out in a couple of weeks.
Right, yeah.
You know, unless maybe you found out they're doing illegal shit. Yeah. Like, well,
Most
I'm
of
out of here.
Most of the time, it's like I had a guy start. He was a VMI specialist in Chicago, doing like inventory and stuff. They
What's
offered
VMI?
Vendor management and inventory.
Oh, okay.
They offered him like $30 an hour, and then another company called him after he got hired and offered him like 35.
Oh.
So he quit after 30 days.
Damn
We didn't have to give money back. I basically give them a credit. So the next guy, say we made 10 grand on him, the next one we make 15. I just knock off 10,000. They owe us 5.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because they don't really want their money back. They want a good employee to make loads more money off of.
Right. Because every company is going to have an evaluation on your head. If I'm paying you 100 grand a year, I better get $300,000 in revenue back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. Sometimes I have to explain that to employees that maybe feel like they're intrinsically worth a whole lot of money. They think that my opinion of them matters. My opinion of them does matter in life, but it doesn't in my business.
Right.
Like, there's just numbers.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring in less than I give you, this relationship doesn't have a future.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, I like you, but maybe not that much. You know?
Yeah. But I would love to find somebody like I would love to find a me, someone who was just hungry, had no direction, and just had the grit. Like that's probably the best word I could use. Is people need grit to do like a full commission sales job or run a business, because it's the same thing to me. Like if you can't, you're working quote unquote for us, but I'm not your boss. I'm not here to micromanage your ass. That's the last thing I want to do is manage people. I want to show you what to go do and then have you go do it.
Right.
And, running
There's a lot of freedom in that.
Yeah,
I
there
mean,
is.
like, you talk about lots of work to do to get paid a lot of money, but what's your work schedule like? You don't bang out 90 hours a week.
Mm-mm. I work 7 days a week, but my desk is 8 feet from my bed. I don't leave my house hardly. Like I work from home almost exclusively. So I wake up 8 o'clock. By the time 9 o'clock rolls around, I'm hunting for candidates, getting conversations set up, and then usually by 2 o'clock I'm hanging it up. But I do that 7 days a week. It's become so a part of my regular schedule.
Yeah, dude, but you make twice what people around in our area are making. Put in 12-hour days.
Mm-hmm.
Building things
Yep.
and busting their backs, and oftentimes they work 7 days,
Yeah.
which it kills you.
And that's the difference between trading time for money and skills for money.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, be done by 2 every day.
Mm. Gosh. I probably put 25 hours a week in, and that gives me a lot of time to do other things. Like,
So like in a good month where you land a few candidates all the way through, you break it down by the hour. What's that hourly rate look like?
probably about 200.
Like $200 an hour?
Mm.
It's pretty good. It's like heart surgery level.
Yeah. It's not bad.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I think probably my biggest month this year has been like 60,000.
That's a good month.
Now, it took me 2.5 months to put that work in,
Yeah.
but bam, like it all hit in 1 month. It was just like, holy fuck. Like,
Yeah.
and like it's starting to get more consistent that way. Like I'm starting to have more of those kinds of months just because I've been so consistent every single day doing the same thing over and over again, having that discipline. And it really helps when you enjoy it. Like it doesn't feel like work. I'm just on the internet playing around. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, well, and you're having conversations with people, which is never like a terrible task. Maybe cold calling is a more difficult task, but after you get past that point with people, it's probably pretty enjoyable to talk to people, learn about them.
And you don't have to do the cold calling to businesses forever. Like, we're to the point now where we have, I don't know, 17, 18 clients that have been with us for a very long time. And between all of those clients growing, which creates more job opportunities, they just throw job orders at us on a regular basis now. So I don't really have to do new business development. I haven't done hard business development in probably 2 or 3 years. So
That's good.
it's just a matter of keeping those relationships warm and keeping communication open. Be like, hey, if you guys need something, you got something come down the pipeline, give it to me first. You know, let me take a stab at it, so that way when it does come open, you got people ready to go. So there's no time loss or potential growth loss in your company, because you got people lined up from us that are good candidates that could do that job right away.
So do you keep like a journal, like to follow up? Like, I've started a lead, follow up on this, follow up on that. Remember to keep this warm. Remember to keep that warm.
I've got a CRM system I use that, because it can get, like, if you got 8-10 candidates in your pipeline, like, it's easy for things to fall through the cracks, like, for communication.
Yeah.
So I make sure I save these people on my phone. I'm a big texter. When I talk to candidates, I'm like, hey, is this your personal phone? Is it okay if I send you text messages? And most of the time it's like, yeah, that's perfectly fine.
People love text now, man.
So not only am I only spending, so my average call length talking to a candidate is 15 to 20 minutes. I can get all the information I need out of them in 15, 20 minutes and determine if they're a good candidate. And then from there, it's just text message and email communication. You know, coordinating interviews.
Have you ever had any like hilarious fucking conversations with people? Because they're funny, or maybe like the whole thing just went really wrong, or
I've talked to people that they look good on paper, and you get them on their phone, they're just absolute turds.
Yeah. Dude, that happened to me recently. I don't have the luxury of having high enough paid positions in my businesses to use recruiters. At least I haven't discovered it yet. But I got the best resume in my life. I think I told you about this. The best resume I've ever read in my life came across our restaurant. And my partner showed it to me. He's like, bro, this has to be ChatGPT. He was like, look at this. It was so good. This guy could have like easily been the president of the United States. Like, sign him up. Like, I'll vote for him.
Yeah.
And so anyway, in the interview, he was real close to Forrest Gump.
Oh my God.
Like, and I'm not being hateful, but like, it did not match.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was like, holy shit. I didn't know which one he was kidding with. I thought there was a real possibility that he was kidding about the way he was behaving, or he had to be kidding about the resume, because one of them had to be false, right?
Something didn't align here.
I was like, I don't know in which way he's screwing with me right now, but I'm definitely being screwed with. Do you run into that, like amazing resumes and underqualified people?
Oh yeah. Yeah, not often. Most people that are good candidates usually have a pretty good resume, but you know, you do find those ones just like, like, I gotta really screen this guy because his resume looks kind of fishy.
Something's up.
Yeah, something's up. So it doesn't happen very often. But we offer guidance on resumes. I've seen thousands and thousands of resumes now. I know what gets hired. I know what doesn't. And you'd be surprised how many, like, sales guys that they're amazing salespeople, can talk, they show growth, they know the product, but they can't write a resume for shit. They don't express their growth on a resume. So if you're in sales or any type of management role, hiring managers love seeing percents and dollar signs on resumes. They pop out when you're reading like a bullet pointed resume.
Yeah.
You know, you can show that you say you're in a management role and you have P&L responsibility. You can show that you've done cost cutting or you've done certain things to save money or grow money. Outside salespeople need to show, I managed a $2 million territory, took it from 100,000 to 300,000 in 6 months. Like they want to see that kind of stuff because that's what you're getting hired for, is to go out and sell and grow a territory. They want to see
that you've done it.
Right.
Yeah. And at least that you know what it means, which that, you can do math. Like, the guy understands that he needs to go from 100 to 300.
Right.
I get that.
So we help. I do resume writing for people. I've helped buddies get, just for free, get good jobs just because their resumes weren't up to snuff. I'm like, if you want to get a look, this is what you need to put in your resume. There's a common misconception that your resume shouldn't be longer than like a page or two. Completely false. Like, as long as the information is relevant and not redundant, I've had 4 and 5 page resumes before that are just impressive as fuck. Like everything, like every job, it was something different.
Yeah.
It was relevant to the job opening. Like they weren't just repeating things. And, when you should always bullet point your resume. You should never write paragraphs because no one has time. The average HR manager or hiring manager is going to spend 10, 15 seconds looking at your resume.
Yeah. I could tell you, if maybe it'd be useful for you or just anybody listening, my favorite way to get a resume in all the different businesses I've owned is like the front page has the bullet points and the information that I can look at quickly. And then maybe at the bottom it's got a little bit of a compelling professional character lead that makes me want to turn the page.
Right.
So I could see, because most of the time when I'm looking at a resume, I'm not actually evaluating the person. I'm looking to see if they even fit. Is their availability fit? Is their skills a match? Is their experience a match? Like, I just want to see that stuff. I don't want to hear you tell me about it in long form.
Right.
But then, if you are a fit, and I'm compelled to read about you, I don't mind having lots of pages after that. However you want to write it. Keep it interesting.
I always tell people that every bullet point should be started with some kind of an action verb. Designed, managed, laid out.
Yeah, something you did.
Right. Don't go responsible for. Like, we know you're responsible for those things. It's redundant. That's your job.
Yeah.
What specifically did you do?
Right. Like, and how.
Right.
Is always cool. I did this by doing what?
Right.
Like, because I've known these people that worked with me when I used to work for other companies. They kept getting promoted because they could put shit on their resume that they didn't do. Because it happened while they were in position. That's it. You know what I mean? That's why responsible for is pretty useless. I used to get people promoted to get their job. That's how that happens. Like, yeah, you increase sales by 800%, so you get promoted and I can have your job. But you couldn't put on your resume how you did it.
Yeah.
Because you didn't. I did it for you.
Yeah.
And when I explain it to you, you just glaze over, like, whatever, man, just get me promoted.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So what else would anybody want to know about PQ Talent? Is there anything we missed, or?
No, I think we pretty much covered it all. Like I said, our industry is very niche. It's manufacturing.
Where do they find you if they're interested in recruiting with you or hiring you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. Those are probably my biggest 2 avenues.
Okay. Cool.
Josh Francis. You can look me up, connect with me, shoot me a message. I'd be happy to talk to anybody who's interested. We're pretty picky with who we work with. Like I said, you got to have some certain aspect, like certain skill sets that align well, and mostly the eagerness to learn and grit. I know I said that earlier, but I think grit is the best word to use. Is someone who can just stay focused, can see the end result, believes in the end result. Like, because you gotta believe it's going to happen. Like, I think that's the driving force behind it.
Sure, it can't be like, well, hopefully one day.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got a part-time guy who works for me right now. He's got a full-time job. He makes like, I don't know, 120 grand a year. His full-time job. He's doing this. He's been with us about 2 months, and he's getting really close to his first placement. There's two sides of our business. We have the sales side, which is the business development, which is going out and calling the companies, getting those contracts and getting those job orders. And then there's the recruiting side of filling it. So we pay based on what side you want to do, because someone can come on. Usually when we start someone out, we used to put them in business development, but that's the hardest part of it. And that's where most people fail. So we've actually switched gears and started people on the candidate side, because that's the fastest way to money. We want them to believe in it. So we want them to get a placement. So we start them out, whether you want to do, we call it half circle and full circle placements. So whether or not you want to do full circle or half circle, we always start you out on candidates now. Like, because I've got plenty of work to keep someone busy. Like, I've got plenty of openings for you to go out and make some money on. But then, like, after you get your first placement or two, then we can kind of start transitioning you over to learning the sales side, so you can start developing your own full desk. So you have your own clients, so you can get the full commission structure the way we pay. We pay big commissions. We pay more than the industry standard. So if you're doing a full circle, you get, so say you called a company, brought a job order in, you went out and found the candidate, filled the role all on your own without any help from me. We pay 60% of the overall fee.
That's good money.
Yeah.
It's real good money.
Yep. So if you made the fee was 20 grand, you'd make $12,000 on a person. On one person.
Man, that's cool.
That's a lot of money for a lot of people. A lot of people have never seen $12,000 in a lump sum just handed to them, like, here you go.
Yeah. And there's no reason that you can't work hard at it and line one of those up every few weeks, every couple weeks, every week if you really wanted to go, really wanted to put it in.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big world out there.
I could absolutely show someone how to make easy six figures working from home.
Well, and what if you were real hungry and wanted to recruit 80 hours a week?
I could make
what could a person do?
If they were independent and they got to keep the whole fee, like, because I could show somebody how to open up their own recruiting business and go do it on their own. Like, I would.
Yeah. What if they did it for you? What if somebody was like, yeah, I really want to kill this, and I want to know your guys' method, and I want your support. And I'll put in 80 hours a week. Like, what would their line of growth look like if they were, talented?
You could. So I would say give it 2 to 3 years to get to your peak. Because it's a steep learning curve.
Yeah, that's a lot faster than anything that requires an education.
Right, but if they were putting 70 hours, if they were used to working 70 hours a week in a factory and they put 70 hours a week into recruiting, they could go make 200 grand.
Yeah, just right away.
Mm.
It's pretty promising.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
I could, like, I don't like, I'm not bragging about money or anything. There's always a bigger fish out there.
Oh, sure.
Always. But if I put 80 hours a week in recruiting, which I'm not going to do, I value my time.
Sure.
Like, the money I make, I'm comfortable with and happy with. But I could do $400,000, $500,000 a year. I mean, the money's there.
Just on your own personal
right
candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's a good thing. People need to know the money's there.
And a lot of people go, well, why don't you go do that then? Well, it's like, my time is very valuable to me. Like, I'm okay with working 25 hours a week and making X amount of money, because I make enough to cover all my expenses and have a lot of money to go and do some investing with every year, and I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, and you keep your expenses low too.
Yeah.
So everybody has
Absolutely.
different motivations
Mm-hmm.
too, and you also don't have kids.
Mm-mm.
And everybody has different things in their life. They, to someone else, that might be way worth it. If somebody has 5 kids, 3 gambling debts, and 2 houses,
Yeah.
and they want to quit their factory job 70 hours a week, making $200 to $300K. is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
That might be really attractive to them.
Yep. It's just you got to put the work in. Like, if the old saying, if it was easy, everybody would do it. Like making 2, 3, 4, 500 grand a year isn't easy.
Yeah, well, that's good, man. You wouldn't want it to be easy anyway. It's probably way more meaningful that it's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. But it's very possible. Like,
that's cool.
It's 100% possible. Like my growth, like since, say, 2023, 2022, 2021, since 2021, I've doubled my income every year.
That's a good growth pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that shit up for a while. See what happens.
Yeah.
Man.
And that's not by putting in more hours. That's just becoming a lot more efficient.
That's important.
And being consistent.
It's an important thing to note. Probably really inefficient at first in this industry.
Very. A lot of tripping, a lot of stumbling, a lot of missing candidates.
Probably wasted days.
Sleepless nights. Like when I first started, I was making 65, 70 grand a year working at CAT, which is, okay money, I guess.
Yeah. Depends on where you live. Around here, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And when I first started doing recruiting, I took almost a 50% pay cut. And I did that for years. Like, I stumbled a lot. Like I said, I didn't have the skill set required to do recruiting. I had to change as a person. Like, I had to change completely how I thought. I had to learn business. I had to learn communication skills, sales skills.
From scratch.
Yeah. So that took time to develop.
Sure.
But as it developed, my income started to raise dramatically. So, like, most people's growth is, like, very linear. In recruiting, it's more exponential. If you were to put that, like, on a line graph.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you might take a dip when you first start, but in the long term, you're going to probably double or triple your income.
Yeah, it's like anything else rewarding. It has a risk.
Mm-hmm.
It has a cost and a risk.
Yep.
Like every single thing that's worth doing.